Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. Well, you guys too, I guess. Welcome to our 4th episode of the GenX Think Tank. I'm Hessie Jones of our company, and tonight we're discussing GenX parenting in the digital age. I'd like to welcome also Laurie Dillon, who is going to help me moderate this episode. So, just to frame the discussion, Gen X is the first generation that straddled a life experience with and without the internet. We actually sit squarely between two generations with really polarized experiences. My mom's a boomer, and so is my dad, obviously. But they say that I put almost everything on Facebook, and they say I overshare. Though my mom and dad both have Skype accounts, right? They rarely use it, but they've actually recently been enamored with actually talking to their grandchildren free on live video, which is really cool. But they still read newspapers. They still read hardcover books. They've recently only started texting to each other, and my children actually show them how to use their iPads, and they show them how to set up their iTunes account, and they even actually show them how to enter the Wi-Fi password on their devices every time that they go to their house. So if you remember back when we were younger, we basically played a lot. We were outdoors a lot. We ran the neighborhoods from dawn till dusk. We never really had chat or text time, but we had a lot of in real life experiences with each other, and we would whisper to each other. That was the form of what we call DM, and we also intricately folded paper notes that we'd pass to one another during class. If you remember, we also had a lot of low-tech gadgets, like if you remember Merlin or Space Invaders or Atari. So now we're actually one of the first truly high-tech parents. So now we've all grown up, and I'm going to share with you a couple of stats that I found online. So while there are fewer Gen Xers getting married, our divorce rates are actually significantly lower than boomer divorce rates at our age. 48% of Gen X fathers actually spend 3 to 6 hours a week on child rearing compared to the boomer fathers before them. And twice as many Gen X moms, interestingly, elect to stay home to raise their kids now instead of pursuing a career. I was talking to Laurie about this earlier, but there's also, and I can't find the stat on it, but there's also a rising number of Gen X dads that actually start to choose to stay home as well and be parents. So this will provide you context into how we frame our discussion tonight. Okay, so I'm going to get Laurie to ask the first question, and then we're going to. This is meant to be interactive, and please jump in if you have something to say. Okay, so Laurie, go ahead.
Okay, so for the first question, super hard. We're going to do a little rapid fire introduction. I've kind of put it into the chat facility. Super easy. What's your name? How many kids do you have and their ages roughly? What kind of technology do your kids have? And how much screen time do your kids have per day? So I'll start you off, Laurie Dillon. I have 2 kids. You saw one earlier, ages 6 and 9. And they both have their own iPod. They have access to, to my iPad. They use my phone. They also use the desktop. They know Netflix, and they can use a PS3. So that's, I think, about the sum of it. And how much screen time? I'm kind of embarrassed to share it. I think probably at least an hour a day, if not more like an hour and a half. Yeah. Okay, so let's go down the list. Susie, can I get you to do the introduction for yourself?
Sure. My name is Susie Erjavec Parker. I'm in Winnipeg. I'm a social media strategist and agency owner. I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and ranging in ages 7, 9, and 4. And we got the 2 older boys, Santa got them tablets last year for Christmas. The boys know how to use my husband's iPad. They know how to get Netflix set up. They know how to use video on demand on our television. They know how to PVR things. My youngest one, I try to keep her away from the devices as much as I can. Sometimes I let her play with them if I'm in a meeting and I need to need her to be quiet, basically, and distract her, I will let her use my phone to play Chop Chop Ninja or something. But we try to make sure that they read books every day, as well as have screen time. So to us, it's very important that they, and for school as well, that they are getting that imagination going and using books and language as much as they are using technology.
Laurie, you have to unmute.
Very good. Susie, awesome. We're going to come back to some of the things that you're talking about. Joel, you're on the spot. Can you introduce yourself?
All right, so my name is Joel Marans. I am a creative technologist, digital marketer located in Toronto. And I think, Laurie, I may be getting some pickup off of your, maybe you want to, there you go, mute yourself. Lovely. I have two kids. I have a 6.5-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl going on 14. They each have lots of hand-me-down technology. They have my old iPhone, my wife's old iPhone. We've got a couple of iPads cycling through the family as well. As a professional geek, I guess I've made it, along with, obviously, consultation with my wife. I think it's very important that kids get acclimated to technology and have the right balance between some of the analog stuff that they experience and enjoy the benefits of what technology brings. And I also should qualify that my daughter in particular, my 9-year-old, signed a contract. We had her sign a contract before she was given her, we call it her iPhone, and it doesn't have any cell coverage, but before she was allowed to use it, and she knows that certain consequences if she doesn't live up to those commitments. In terms of screen time, gotta say it's probably pretty consistent with Laurie, combined with TV, and mostly TV during the week, actually. They don't spend much time at all using tech, but I'd say an hour a day, and they know how to use, obviously, the TV. We have a new LG TV that has a Wii-like remote that my 6-year-old had to teach my wife how to use. They love the Kinect, and they both know how to use that, along with, again, all of the iDevices in our house.
Mute. Okay, awesome. Hessie, can you go through your family situation?
Yeah, okay, so I have two kids. I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. So my 15-year-old is mainly, what were the questions here? Hold on a sec. The 15-year-old is mainly on her iPhone all the time, on text and chat all the time, or Tumblr. And my son is on his iPad almost all the time, so he sleeps with it. And I'm really embarrassed because he actually should not go to bed with his electronics, but he does. And the minute he gets home, I try to get him to do his homework or read for a few hours, and they're not allowed to touch their screens or any kind of screen, TV or whatever, until 6 or 7 o'clock at night when they're done their homework. But once they do, they kind of grab onto it and stay on it for a good 2-3 hours up until the point that they go to bed. So
that's good. That's good. What about you, Gregg?
So Gregg Tilston, I have 4 kids, and I either started young or I have great use of oil of Olay. But my kids are actually 17, 19, 20, and 20. So I've actually experienced kids at a young age getting into Facebook when Facebook was quite new. So it was an interesting experience. We certainly limited the time the kids were on their devices. I saw the shift of the kids moving, particularly the boys, moving from watching TV to just watching YouTube constantly. They actually moved completely off television. How many screens or devices? I mean, if we have all 4 kids and Kel and I in the house, we could probably break 15 to 20 devices running at any given time that's online. So we're pretty connected family over here.
Wow, that's incredible.
wait, can I ask Gregg?
Yeah.
The 20 devices that are running concurrently, can you just give me visibility into what they would be?
So certainly, I mean, 3 TVs on, I mean, we're 5 to the house, so 3 TVs on 5. We would probably, everybody has a computer. Most have tablets. Everybody has a phone connected. So, 6 times, well, geez, we probably do break 20. 6 times 3 right there is easily 20.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Elijah, on to you.
Well, excuse me, sounds like my story is pretty average here. I have 2 kids, 6 and 8, and each one of them have, well, our son says he has an iPad, he doesn't, he has a tablet, and we haven't corrected him because he seems pretty excited about having an iPad, but he does use my iPad whenever he gets a chance. The kicker for me is that my wife has a master's in early childhood development, so that's always been a real advantage. I have no idea if I would have ever been able to raise children on my own. And because what she does, she's a teacher as well, she uses adaptive technology in school. And so she was originally very opposed to screen time and has kind of come around to it, both for the sake of just sheer management, when you've got meetings and you need the kids to be quiet, and, in terms of educational apps and things like that. So, now we have both kids have tablets. She and I both have tablets, iPads. We have laptops. The kids use Netflix. Yeah, we're pretty wired in around here as well.
Is that all in the last 2 years, or has this been a long-term? I mean, you must have really noticed a big difference in the last 2 years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of our children, we had the first thing they got were our old phones, right? So we had smartphones, and then we had new smartphones, and so we had phones that weren't really phones that just had apps on, and some of them were games, and so we let the kids play with those. And once my wife was open to the possibility of there actually being something educational out there, she started looking around it and chose what the kids have used. And to be totally honest, I've never had any say in the matter whatsoever, and that's just fine with me.
Cool. Okay, thank you. So that was an excellent round robin. I think we can depart from there into our first question. Hessie, do you want to dive into something related?
I think we forgot someone, right?
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm staring at her face. Anne-Marie, it's because I see a big black box, but I see your face.
I know I'm kind of mundane, but.
Okay, Anne-Marie, I didn't forget you. I was just testing to see if everyone was watching.
I'm Anne-Marie Vanden Hurk. I'm principal of Mind the Gap Public Relations, specialize in crisis communications, reputation management. I speak to a lot about cyber safety. I have one child, a almost 8-year-old boy, and let's see. He has, like a lot of everyone else, hand-me-down devices, old smartphones, iPad. In fact, he's been on an iPad since first-generation iPad, so that was, 2010? And we pretty much, up until recently, only had educational games on that, or apps. Let's see. He gets about... not a lot of screen time during the school week. Usually on the weekends, then he's allowed to have his iPad and do what he wants with it. But mostly he'll get to watch maybe an hour of TV. But other than that, he's off devices unless mommy has a meeting. Then he can do that. Did I answer all the questions?
Yeah, I think you did.
Everyone's talking, so yeah.
No, it's good. And I think later on, I want to get more into the screen time thing, specifically on TV versus what's it called, device. But we're ready to go to the next question, right, Laurie? So one thing that's really important, I think, because I alluded to the fact that a lot of us sit between two very disparate generations, right? And so we have our toes dipped in the water with Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And then on the other side, we're struck in the whole Luddite world where, your parents say, in my day, right, we passed paper notes in class, we wrote real letters to people, and we talked to people face to face, right? So there are two very dichotomous situations. And so what I want to ask you guys is that talk about your relationship as Gen Xers with your parents, first of all. And then the second part of that is are your children connected to their grandparents? And how does technology fit into that situation? So who wants to answer that first? Otherwise, I'm going to pick you.
I mean, I can answer it. My parents want all the gadgets. However, they're not very tech savvy, so I spend a lot of time troubleshooting with them. However, my husband's father is extremely tech savvy. He's based in the Netherlands, and my son spends a lot of time connecting with him via Skype. So we're embracing technology, but more from the visual point of communication, letting grandparent and grandchild interact, and it seems to work. He loves it. He loves being able to see his opa.
And it's your parents, you're saying, embraced it easily, or was this something that took some time?
Well, I think it's very interesting. I think once you become a parent, once they become grandparents, I think the adaptation goes up quicker. Because I have to admit this, my mother does not have a debit card. She has never used like a cash machine. She refuses to. But yet, if she can see her grandchild, they live in Florida, I live in North Carolina, she will figure out how to use FaceTime.
Isn't that interesting?
I think it's a motivator for a lot of grandparents and older people to be able to engage with their grandchildren. I think it's a top motivator.
No, absolutely. I remember on Thanksgiving Day, my parents couldn't come up, and I had 20 of my family and all the grandkids at my place. We literally had Skype open for 2 hours as the kids would entertain my parents, and they would sing to them, they would chat with them, and my parents loved it because it was free, and they just had unlimited time with them as if they were there, right? So, okay, Elijah. So what was the question again?
Hang out. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So, it's funny. When my daughter was very young, I traveled extensively, and so we would Skype, and that's, to be honest, that's how she knew me. I remember I got home from Los Angeles once to Austin, and I walked in the front door, and my wife said, "Daddy's home," and my daughter ran to the computer, and that's when I decided to stop traveling. That said, it's been a wonderful tool for allowing our kids to connect with my wife's parents. My mother is, I think was it Emery? So my mother is a total Luddite, right? She doesn't have a computer. She doesn't have, like, someone got her a phone that takes pictures, and it blows her mind, right? So, but both of my wife's parents don't have smartphones. They're on Facebook and they Skype with the kids, at least once a week. It's been a fantastic tool, and I think that someone said the fastest growing demographic on Facebook is that is boomers, and I think that has everything to do with them connecting with their grandkids. That and the fact that everyone else is already there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think the other thing is that the boomers that connect with other boomers, especially the ones that go down, we call them snowbirds here in Canada. The ones that go down to Florida. But I mean, it's part of being it's that whole connected video thing that's much better than a paid long distance bill, right?
No, of course.
Anyway, okay, Gregg.
Yeah, so it's funny. I facilitated a discussion with some educators who were boomers and boomers and up, I guess. And I was going through the fact that my kids, it's baked into their DNA. They're online, and everybody's like, "Yep." And then our age. We're online, we're connected, and people are like, yeah. I said, and then I showed a picture of my parents. I said, but of course, my parents aren't online, and their friends aren't online. And they all agreed, and, yep, you're right. I said, but what was interesting is my parents started following my kids to connect with them on Facebook, and then they realized that each other were online, and they all started connecting. So the challenge that I threw out to this group of boomers was, as marketers or as educators, potentially we don't know how to reach that group yet, because they are online and they're connecting together originally because of the kids. So I think that's a huge opportunity for us to facilitate as Xers. And then I guess in terms of technology, my parents, from an adoption perspective, funny story. I told my mom forever and ever that I needed to get her an Apple TV. For my mom and dad. Mom's like, no way, no way, no way. She fought it for about a year because she thought her 55-inch Toshiba at the house was just fine. I'm telling you, once she got Apple TV and she has an iPad now and it's all connected, like, she's asked me to stop buying presents for them because it's the gift that keeps on giving in her mind. It's just like it blows her mind every single time she uses it. So, get them across the line, and it's amazing what certainly boomers will do and how they will facilitate technology in my opinion.
I want to ask that question about Apple TV, because I think that Netflix has changed the game in terms of consumption. And is there anybody else on the panel who's, let's say, parents or even your kids watch a lot of the Apple TV or the Netflix?
Well, we pretty much, that's all we watch in our house is Netflix. I don't watch TV real time. We haven't done that in about 3 years, 4 years. I mean, it's just once we got Netflix, we never went back. We're watching a lot of things on YouTube. Same thing with, my son knows nothing different outside of course, PBS Kids. We're highly addicted to watching that. That's part of our morning routine is flip on PBS Kids. But other than that, we're not tethered to a TV. I mean, we watch TV when we want to watch it, and it's Netflix and YouTube.
Yeah. Is anybody else like that? I just want to see whether or not there's actually a trend here.
We're just doing on chat talking about cutting the cord for cable, and my excuse is that we're Canadian. We don't have the same on-demand content that you guys do in the States. And if I could get U.S. Netflix on my big screen TV as opposed to my computer, then I would do it. But for me, there's certain shows that we watch as a family. Like we like to watch The Voice. The kids love to hear the people singing and the music and things like that. They love that. And we watch things like The Goldbergs. But there's a lot of shows that my kids are not allowed to watch, like even Disney Channel shows, because I don't like the way that people talk to each other on television. I don't like the way certain plot lines are developed for kids. It bothers me in terms of just the language and the values, I guess, that they show on television.
Yeah,
I like to be in control of what they're watching.
Yeah,
I agree.
it's rude. They're rude, and ugh.
Well, not to mention, if you've watched any recent Disney soap opera show, any kind of gender stereotypes that they perpetuate on,
Yes.
they're horrible. We can't stand watching them. Horrible.
And the laugh
But anyway,
tracks, I cannot stand the laugh tracks on those shows. They're terrible.
Good point, good point. I've got no cable. I've had no cable for about 6 years now. We only watch Netflix. We watch a lot of YouTube, but we have not missed cable at all. And I think one of the stats I saw is a good 25% of Canadians actually have no cable. You just won't hear that from a media company, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so the other thing, I think that the other thing that's really difficult with consuming like the Netflix and the video, especially among kids, is that, like, for me, especially when they're on their computers, I have no idea what they're watching sometimes, especially when I'm off doing my own thing. And Netflix doesn't have like a censor type button because next thing you know, my kids are watching Orange is the New Black, and I'm going, isn't that a bad show? I had to get a friend of mine to tell me what the context of that show was, and I literally have to sit on them when I know that they're watching Netflix to make sure that they're only going after, they're watching specific things, because it shows up on Facebook, right? When you watch Netflix, it will kind of stream in the type of show that you're watching. So
you can turn that off. Just yeah.
Oh yes. Okay. Well, it's my kids, right?
even things with YouTube, like my little guys love music. Like I said, they love to watch videos, but there are a lot of videos that are not child appropriate. That even though the song is fun and upbeat and good, you go to the video and it's just like, oh my God, like what is happening in this video? It's all sex and or vulgarity, or the plot line is very violent or whatever it might be, like blurred lines. As a child, my kids love those songs, but if they go to the video of that, my God, I would never want them to see that, right? It's really hard to be in charge of what they're consuming all the time and to be really on top of it. I find that part exhausting, to be honest with you.
No, I totally agree. I kind of derailed the discussion because I want to get to the Netflix thing, but I still want to talk. I still want to hear from you guys about parenting and the Gen Xers and whether or not the connectedness, there is connectedness from a technology perspective between your parents and your kids. Does anybody else want to weigh in on that who hasn't talked about that? I think part of it is Joel?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it was April 12th, 2013 is a date that will live in infamy. It was the day that my mother-in-law friended me on Facebook. And I remember that because, this was the end, and I think Elijah mentioned it earlier, like the largest growing demo on Facebook is boomers. She didn't do it for any other reason than because her peers had connected. Again, my daughter isn't technically on Facebook, so it's not a real method for her to use it. But I think it's actually interesting to see the parallels in how she adopts the technology relative to how my daughter is adopting the technology, their usage of it. I would say that the biggest area where they connect is through email and texting. And I think it's kind of cool because I think someone said it earlier, it gives them a different way of connecting. But we have sort of a safe group of people that my daughter's allowed to text with through iMessage or email. And of course my in-laws are two of those individuals, right? And I nurture that because I think it's important. I'm a big believer in training and etiquette as it relates to using the technology, and I'd rather her make mistakes within the sphere of family and comfort versus with people we don't know. And it actually, it brings a broader topic up that maybe we'll get to later on in the conversation around how many of, and I suspect we're a rather enlightened crew, how many of us have had conversations with our friends about their kids and what we suspect that their kids are doing online or on Instagram or on Facebook that they have no clue. Like the notion of locking down an Instagram account, for example, is most parents don't even think about those types of things.
We should actually talk about that now because I know Elijah brought it up, and it's the same thing about when is a good time for your kids to be introduced to Facebook, right? Yeah. Because I don't know about you, but like my daughter on Facebook is really 18 years old, right? Yeah. Because when she started early and I let her, it was literally having to start an account by being by having a minimum age. So why don't you guys talk about that? Because there are huge dangers that we see. So Elijah, do you want to weigh in on that first?
Yeah, it's funny. It came up with our kid because those of you who are friends on Facebook probably know my daughter started a little rock business where she paints rocks and sells them. It's become quite a fiasco. But it came to the point where people were asking, like, where's her Facebook page? And I'm like, well, she doesn't have a Facebook account, and we're not in any hurry to let her have one. She's 8. But should she be able to have a little business page for her Dream Rocks business, and we still are on the fence about that. And it's the problem is that somebody said earlier about like Disney, obviously every child in the world who's a girl, I think under the age of 10 is madly in love with Frozen, but then Halloween comes around and you've got, sexy Disney characters running around, and kids don't differentiate. They don't understand, that anything, if they go on YouTube and look up Frozen, they're just as likely to find slutty Frozen as they are to find Disney Frozen, and all that stuff totally freaks me out. All said, we haven't let our kid be on Facebook yet, but it's something that it's been kind of an ongoing conversation. I think the contract idea is a really good idea. I think our daughter would respond well to that.
Yeah. Anne Marie, your son is much younger, right? So he doesn't have a social media account, right?
No, I mean, he knows what Facebook is. I mean, because he'll say, Mama, take a picture of me and put it on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Or, you know, things like that. So he understands what Facebook is to a, you know, in his little world of being 7. But no, he doesn't need that.
Yeah.
You know, he has to learn to read better. I don't think Facebook's going to help him do that.
I think the one thing that scares me, because my daughter is 15 and she's in an age bracket where selfies are everything, right? And they take a lot on Instagram. She and her friends take at least up to 10 or 12 different group selfies a day. One time they were taking selfies when they were all in their bathing suits, and it didn't look like bathing suits. They actually looked like they were in their underwear, and they're taking pictures in front of a mirror. And then I saw it on Instagram, and I told her to pull it down right away. And suddenly it became, it occurred to me that, you know, stuff like that, I just happened to see that, and she doesn't understand the ramifications yet. Of what she's doing, but I mean, this is an age where, you know, they can do silly things and it can catch up with them. I don't know if any of you've had any instances like that, or you're worried about that, or how do you educate your kids from that perspective?
If I can jump in, I actually had a situation with one of our kids whereby I wasn't on Instagram. I tried to get on Instagram on Facebook acquisition. Didn't work out. It was only, I guess, 2 years ago, and Alicia, who's a social media specialist for Canada, she said, give me your phone, I'm going to get you on Instagram, because we were doing some testing around some technologies and that. And, you know, it started recommending people. Well, all of a sudden, one of my kids showed up as a recommendation, and Alicia said, isn't this, and I'm not going to name which child, isn't this one of your kids? Do you know the name such and such? I'm like, no. And the pictures... the activities that were happening was quite interesting. It was about not being in school and extracurricular activities. I'll leave it at that. And all I did is I jumped on and said, as myself, and I just commented, well, this is interesting. And you could literally see the Instagram account disappear photo by photo by photo by photo, and all of a sudden the account was not available. So, you know, there's one of our kids who probably set up their Instagram account with Facebook however many years ago, not thinking that Facebook's going to connect me with them. You know, they're skipping school and so on and so forth and other activities, and, you know, years later, boom, comes back to bite them hard.
Yeah. Susie, can you weigh in on that? Because I just noticed your comment on the chat about Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, you know, I'm one of those people who tries to be private, semi-private about my kids, but on Facebook, because there's a lot of friends and family, I do feel more comfortable sharing things on Facebook and pictures of my kids, but I do not post pictures of my kids on Instagram. You will never find my kids' faces on Instagram, and for me that's because it's more public. I can't control who can see what on Instagram, whereas I feel, and maybe that's kind of a bit of false sense of security, I feel more in control about what I can do on Facebook and who can see it. That's not to say that someone can't steal a picture of my kid and download it and do whatever, but I try to lock it down so that it's only friends and family who are looking at my pictures on Facebook. That being said, kids on Facebook, you know, my kids will say, did you post a picture of me on Facebook, and what did people say, and can I see it? Like they're really into the social sharing and social aspect of it. They want to know what's going on there. That being said, my children are not of the age where they can have a Facebook account, and I would never be one of those parents to fudge an age to get them a Facebook account before they are of that age, and I would actually discourage them from having a Facebook account until they were much older. I don't think 13 is old enough for a Facebook account. That's my personal opinion, and I really don't think a child needs to be on Facebook in order to have a fulfilling childhood experience. So
can I table a question or ask?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
I guess I'm just, and maybe, you know, again, specifically as a father of a daughter, this is a topic that's of concern. How do you guys feel this awareness, this self-awareness of getting their pictures on Facebook helps with their self-esteem? Because I just wonder, as they're growing up and as they are at this younger age, is this going to help contribute and build positives? And I'm not. Please don't mistake what I'm saying. I'm not trying to lecture. I'm genuinely curious because this is something that I struggle with myself. But
I think it can do both, right?
Yeah.
I think when you're sharing a common experience where you're looking for help from other people have that shared common experience and can maybe talk you through that or offer you a different perspective. I think that's helpful, but I don't think children, especially teenagers, have that emotional capability to deal objectively with criticism and or dissension in their opinion, right? And I think we're seeing that with online bullying and things like that. And we all know adults who can barely handle the emotional landmine that can be Facebook, right? And I think that when it comes to children and teenagers in particular, that to me, like I said, it's not something that you need to have a fulfilling childhood, and it scares me. I think it can do more harm than good at that stage of life.
The one thing I'll say, though, is that that whole gaming thing, with the number of likes, the number of followers, is a huge thing when it comes to teenagers. I mean, if you that's all they talk about. Hey, did you know I got 10 new followers today? They're at an age where validation is really important to them. And whether or not they get that offline, online is a place where they can feel better. Based on likes and based on followers. I think that's something that I see because as you know, high school is really tough, right? And so if they're not gonna get it in their in real life experience, then if they can get it with a couple people that tend to like something that they do, it helps their self-esteem in that way. Does anybody else have an opinion on that? Because I think that this is a very important topic, I guess, when it comes to child rearing, right?
Yeah, if I could just jump in, I'm not sure. I mean, social media perpetuates it and probably speeds it up. I'm not sure that if I think back for my kids, sort of pre-social and IM and that, I mean, that was all happening. Not necessarily the fulfillment, but the interactions back and forth and the negative interactions that can happen from that. And really, did that not happen before social, before technology? Like, didn't we have a lot of those negative interactions?
I think you hit the nail on the head, though, Greg, which is social is an accelerant.
Yeah.
Right? And it happens in ways that, and this is, I mean, if there was like one umbrella topic for this, is that I'm scared. I'm scared of what we don't know, and I'm scared of what's around the corner. And as much as I try, and my wife tries to teach our children the right tactics and techniques and strategies to leverage this, the reality is all it takes is one cyberbully to do something that, when we were growing up, to try this back to us growing up, what was it, 65 to 80, in that range, right? Absolutely bullying happened, but not to the extent, and I don't believe, not with the same kind of instant-on impact that it can have, that social enables. I'm scared. And so I think our job and our responsibility as parents is to equip them with the right tools and tactics and techniques to prepare them. We have constant conversations with my daughter. She asks if people are allowed, if this person can follow her on Instagram, for example, and I try and reinforce this whole notion of it's not about how many people follow you, it's about why they want to follow you and what you're sharing. And fundamentally, that's what's most important to us.
Yeah.
It's interesting, one area I struggle with, so I hear you, Joel, and that concerns me a lot. I, as a parent, when I had newborns, I shared a lot of their images because it was really about me. But as they age, I'm slowly realizing I need to share less because they're no longer newborns, they're no longer babies, they're like 6 and 9. And although I like sharing the funny things my son does, I sometimes wonder, how is that going to bite him in the butt when he gets older? Is this going to be used against him? And so it's really, I have to curb my own sharing, not my kids at this stage. So interesting situation for sure.
Yeah, no, exactly. Does anybody else want to weigh in on that? Otherwise, we can move to the next question. Laurie?
Yeah. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about how do we limit the screen time. I think Susie, you brought up in the very beginning that you balance screen time with reading books. So I want to hear a little bit about your strategies on balancing, or if you do balance that time. Susie, do you want to give us a start?
Sure. Basically, the way that works is we've told our kids, and they have reading programs through school, that for every 20 minutes they want of screen time, they have to read for half an hour. And they actually, through their school, they have a piece of paper where they can track what they've read, how long they've read, how many pages, and we use that to help a lot how much screen time they can have. And we try to make sure that that's done as soon as they get home from school, where they get to do their reading first and then can go on their screens if they wish.
Yeah. Our daughter is an avid reader. Our son, too. I mean, they're both supposed to be in bed, but I guarantee you if I go in there, at least one of them is reading something right now. And our daughter, I mean, she loves books. She's read over 30 books. We tallied the other day, and we were kind of amazed, but at the same time, they love to be on the tablets. So I don't know if we really try to balance them. We just try to make sure that we feel balance more than we actually track it.
There's an interesting stat, and I didn't say this earlier, but they talk about the fact that if kids are exposed to a certain number of hours of screen time, it actually reduces their ability to actually figure out people's emotions, because they don't have the face-to-face contact. So the cues that they get from actually having in real life experiences face-to-face are actually downplayed. And so it's interesting. There was one of the millennial think tanks that I wanted to bring this up, is that when it comes to emotion, when it comes to actually talking to people about really, really important things, millennials are okay with doing it from a texting perspective. Like if you want to break up with somebody, it's okay to do it through text. Certain important things that we talk about as Gen Xers that are important to messages to say face-to-face are now done electronically. So I don't know what you think about that.
I think there's a huge generational gap there in terms of what we see as acceptable on text versus in person. As a business owner, for me, if I ever have to have an important or sensitive conversation with a client, prospect, colleague, whatever, I will never ever do that through email or text. It is always over the phone or always like this, so that we can see each other. You can hear the intonation of my voice, you can hear the empathy or whatever it might be in my voice, and there's no confusion. I think with text there's too much room for ambiguity or for interpretation of too much negative interpretation, and I really think that in a way you're right in that children of this generation are losing that sensitivity to what makes us human and that face-to-face interaction, and that we do need to connect with each other, not via technology, but really with that voice, with that sound, with the sight. I need to see your face and how you're looking at me, if you're understanding me, are you nodding? Basically your body language, right? We're losing that, and our kids need to be more attuned to what those human emotions are, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I want to hear, so I love what you're saying, Susie. I want to go to Joel, because Joel had also talked about acclimatizing his kids. So Joel, can you kind of like offer your perspective? I don't know if you agree with Susie or if there's another dimension you want to talk about.
Just in terms of sort of letting them wade into using tech?
Just balancing it. Like, so how are you going to balance the devices with the need to know all these other sort of social cues, but also acclimatize them to technology?
Well, I think we start with the premise that using their technology is a privilege, not a right. And I think that's an important distinction to make. And quite frankly, we've used my daughter's, again, iPhone as a bargaining tool as it relates to, and again, if you think back to this contract that we've established with her, that means that she has to do a bunch of different things. Table stakes are just listening and behaving and whatever, but one of the key things on that contract is actually just to create stuff. It's not just about playing games, and it's not just about taking or liking things on Instagram, but actually creating content. So I think if you sort of see technology as a means to create as well, that's sort of one of the on-roads that we've used to technology. And I think in terms of, what was the other question, Laurie? Just around getting them acclimatized?
Well, when you had talked about your kids, you had mentioned that it was important for you to have your children acclimatized to
yeah, I just think,
technology, right?
so, I guess in broad strokes we have two kinds of friends. One kind of group of friends that doesn't want their kids to use any kind of technology because they think it's going to have a corrosive impact on their ability to have social interactions and education and whatnot. And then the other, diving in with both feet and letting them have access to whatever they want, whenever they want. I'd like to think we're sort of in the middle, because we give our kids access to the technology, but they always come with caveats. And I think, Susie, I love what you said in terms of picking up the phone and calling, because I think there's basic human skills that kids need today that they're losing. And I can't tell you, like, for example, I'll give you two specific examples. One is when we go to restaurants, we used to let them play on phones, we don't anymore, right? And if you look around, every single parent at some point, we have done this 100 times, has used technology as a babysitter, as a means to get the kids to quiet down or whatever. In that context, at a restaurant, I believe we're almost breaking a bit of a social contract with each other. And now that the kids are old enough to sustain a conversation, I think that's important. And the other piece is going back to my in-laws. They have a no phone at the table rule, which I totally get, right? I always break it, but so I think that the kids need to understand that there's certain boundaries, social boundaries and social contracts we have with one another. And I think picking up the phone, talking to one another, getting out of your desk in a work context and going over to speak to someone instead of using IM is important. This kind of situation here, using video, I think is actually great, because you can see the passion, you can see the delivery of something versus reading it in a chat window.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, Joel, because it actually segues nicely into the next question, because even though we're talking about limiting screens and all that, there's some added advantages of technology, but there's some, I guess, impacts as well on social, as you said, which I think we should talk about, but also in terms of learning, because as you know, like if kids decide that they want to get the Coles notes for a book by finding it on Wikipedia, they can do that. If they want to ask a question on Siri or on Google Voice, as opposed to actually looking it up and going to a library and looking it up, they can do that. When they text in short form. They don't use full sentences. So now we're trying to figure out whether or not they actually know how to spell. Do you guys have that concern?
I do, and we experienced that with my son last year. We found that he wasn't doing well in school because he was enjoying his iPad a little too much. So at that point, I went really very strict that there was absolutely no use of iPad during the week. And on Fridays, he could have use of his iPad, because we live in the middle of nowhere, so after school there's really no place to go, and he loves to go to Starbucks, so that would be our big treat Fridays, because there wasn't any homework, there wasn't any expectations, because his school is a really high performance school. And even in first grade and now again in second grade, he has about an hour's worth of homework a night. But since we've been limiting his screen time, his grades have improved. His reading has improved. His math has improved. He was always very verbal because he's an only child and pretty much grew up with, parents that like to talk. So, I mean, he certainly had the vocabulary and the social skills, and he loves to have conversations. And like Joel was saying, in restaurants, I mean, he's now 7. we're spending less and less time in restaurants with a device in front of him. We're expecting him more to have a conversation, and he's very capable of varied conversations. Pick a topic, he'll talk your ear about it, either politics, which is very, endearing to my heart, to world affairs, to what's going on in Legoland kind of thing. So I think limiting, while there is benefits to it, I think it has helped him with phonics and things like that, with the educational apps. I think it also has some challenges. And that could be just my son and being a very active little boy who would prefer to be, jumping around playing cars or Legos than sitting down and doing his lessons. But we've reintroduced discipline, and he's become really laser focused, that he knows that if he gets his lessons done and he does his reading, then he has some playtime in terms of, and that may include some screen time depending on how well he's done that day.
Okay. Now, Elijah, because your wife, you're saying, is she an educator as well? Did you say? And
right. She teaches special ed now.
Okay. Okay. So you guys, do you think that you provide a good balance for your kids between the use of technology and actually doing something productive, like using kind of like the old school type? Need more FaceTime with your family, conversation in family time, reading more books, that kind of thing?
Sure. I'm not as skeptical as a lot of people are about the use of technology, but that said, our kids wouldn't even consider picking up a tablet without asking. They just wouldn't do it. They know better. We don't take them to restaurants anymore. We don't take them in the car unless we're really traveling somewhere. We're lucky enough to live in a neighborhood where people still play in the front yard, and other kids down the street are around their age. So we do a lot of that. The kids read every single night. All of that stuff, again, that's all because of my wife, and because she really understands what they need developmentally. But they love it all. She's more relaxed than I am about just sort of like, she'll let the kids go take the dog for a walk around the block, which makes me hyper nervous. But at least they're getting outside, right? They're outside, running around and climbing trees and doing things that we did when we were kids that a lot of kids don't do now, I think.
No, you're right. Laurie, go ahead.
I think because we've limited his screen time, he prefers to go out and play. Given the choice, go outside and play or watch television, most of the times he'll actually pick, I want to go outside and I want to play soccer. So,
is that true for a lot of the other kids? Like Gregg, your kids are older though, right? So the younger ones, what's their preference when it comes to, I guess, play? Is it electronics?
Well, we definitely kick our kids outside. Oh, sorry, Gregg.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we kick our kids outside and make them play. Simple.
Yeah, I think, we again, as I mentioned, in devices, we're heavy users of technology and heavy users of online. That said, like I look at my son, he's a huge skateboarder. So, he gets out and does that. We've always been an active family. I think in the chat I said, there can be a balance. I firmly believe that, having had kids all the way up into their 20s. But I think it comes down to the parents rather than the parents counting on the kids to figure out that balance. I don't know if that makes sense or not. We're a very online family, but then when we go to the cottage, it's very offline, and we spend a lot of time going on walks, going on hikes, that kind of thing, and that's the time to connect with the kids. We're heavy users of text. I saw that earlier in terms of, Elijah, you mentioned about 3 texts, then you call. we primarily do text when we're conversing, just planning or whatever else. We're also heavy users of Snapchat among a number of the kids. So there's a lot of, that we're communicating that way as well. Gives a little more of the visual, I guess, but I still think it's reliant upon the technology from that perspective. So, to me, it's always come back down to what the parents facilitate with the kids as the mixture, because the kids themselves will just go straight to the technology.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the point that, parents set the tone. I mean, the kids learn from us, and I know I am very guilty. I am a junkie. I'm a smartphone junkie. This goes everywhere with me. And I know I have to temper myself and set an example for him by doing things that aren't involved some sort of screen. And it's hard, but I make every effort to do that. So he has my husband and I especially, we try to set that example of doing things without technology. Hiking, biking, running, playing soccer, things that don't involve, our smartphone. We teach them.
I find that's particularly true as you're managing your kids getting older. Like, I'm always trying to understand what stage they're in, and sometimes even with my husband, I have to remind him of some of those non-tech ways of connecting. Like, he does a lot of cooking, and I've said to him, you need to have a sous chef all the time. So who's your sous chef tonight? And then that just sort of gives him a bit of a frame, like a sort of a mind shift, I guess. And then he starts thinking about how to bring them into the things that he's doing because they're old enough. So anyway.
Yeah, we did the same thing with the kids, where I'm the cook in the house, and the kids would help out. They'd all have days where they would be helping me make dinner. So.
My son loves to cook. I mean, he's been cooking with me since he could stand, which was 12 months old. So for him, cooking is one of his favorite activities, and he'll talk your ear off about what he can cook and what he cooks with Mama and what he cooks with Papa and what he cooks with Opa and everyone. So our kids should just hang out. They can cook together.
They should. They could do that through some kind of technology.
There's
so look, I know we've got three minutes left, so I want to get to the last question that Hessie posted in the chat facility. And this is the idea of, do you feel like you're parenting in the dark? Like, do you fully know what they're doing online, or do you fully know how to handle or manage your kids? Like, how comfortable are you with managing parenting as a Gen Xer, I guess? Anyone want to take a stab?
I think that could be, said for parenting in general. I mean, yeah, I think we're always parenting in the dark. After your first child, I mean, they come out and there's no manual. You're like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this thing? So I think we're always going to be parenting in the dark, unless you have multiple kids and you sort of have made all your mistakes on 1, 2, and 3. I mean, I only have one, so I think I'm constantly in the dark, making it up as I go along, and so far he seems to be okay. We'll see in about 20 years if he goes to therapy or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I think one thing, Anne-Marie, because you're a big technology user as well as most of us are here, is that we're kind of trying to keep step or keep ahead of the pace so that if anything ever comes up with respect to even cyberbullying or sites that our kids shouldn't visit, or security, privacy, all that stuff, we always have to keep ahead of the game. And so when we talk about parenting in the dark, especially today, everything is moving so fast that not everybody can keep up with what's going on. And so
I think we're lucky. I mean, I think a lot of us are lucky that we have been early adapters of technology. I mean, I've been, in the terms of cyber safety, I've been doing this for more than a decade. I've been involved in it for more than a decade, when, even pre-Facebook and, social, and there are things I don't know. I can't imagine, and I know parents that do not have the knowledge that I have, or anyone that's here on this panel has. And I mean, that's scary. I mean, they truly are in the dark. But, we do our best to educate and share with people.
Right. Anybody else want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'm not worried now, but I'm terrified for the future. As my kids get older and they start to get a little bit more autonomous and they have, access to things that I'm not there, that scares the heck out of me.
Well, and when they get to the point as well, Elijah, where they end up knowing more than you, because they may find newer technology, and as we get older, you know, we're going to get complacent. We're not going to be as quick as we are today, and our kids will kind of surpass us in terms of getting that kind of knowledge ahead of us, right?
True. I'm going to give them a run for their money, though.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you hope that you raise them right at the end of the day. So.
The only thing I would quickly add is technology isn't good or bad, right? It's what kids do with it, and I think we all agree that it's a parent's responsibility to equip our kids with the right tools and strategies to use it appropriately, to have open and honest, transparent conversations with it. The worst thing I can imagine is a parent handing their kid a tablet, a phone, or a computer and saying, okay, see you in half an hour, and leaving it up to them. That's where things break down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been talking with my son since the day I gave him to use the iPad when it first came out on a flight to the Netherlands, which turned out to be a 10-hour flight. So he understands what's good, what's bad, and I've been constantly talking. So I mean, Joel's like hit it on the head. Discussion, interaction.
Okay, and with that, I think we have to go because it's 9:31. But I wanted to thank you guys for coming. It's clear to me that just listening to this discussion, it means that we actually haven't failed our kids in terms of just jumping into technology and trying to leverage it to the hilt without getting them to understand the balance of I guess the importance of even being human and having a family and having a lot of the stuff that we had growing up and understanding that and figuring out, you know, where technology fits in the space, not as a dominant thing, but as a thing that sits on the side. So, anyway, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we look forward to the next GenX Think Tank in a couple of weeks. That'll be I think the 16th of December, and everybody say bye.
I guess.
Okay.
Bye. Thank
Thanks,
you.
cheers.
Okay. Fair.
Bye.